Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today as we share insights into some of the security challenges faced by online gaming and gambling providers, as well as uncovering how these challenges can be managed and mitigated. You can ask questions throughout the presentation using the software interface, and we will address them towards the end of the presentation. As a quick introduction, I'm joined today by my colleague Stéphane Nouvelin, who is a Principal Solutions Engineer at Cloudflare, who has extensive experience of helping large and small enterprises across Europe, the Middle East, and Africa to help optimize their web-facing security stacks. My name is Philip, and together with Stéphane, I work closely with our gaming and gambling customers across the region. And due to the nature of the business, this segment is particularly susceptible to being a target for bad actors and threats on the internet. Attackers typically try to exploit platforms and endpoints for profit or purely to wreak havoc. Why is the gaming and gambling segment a prime target? For one, it's an industry that is constantly up and running 24/7. And has a high level of user expectations when it comes to performance and availability. For another reason, gaming and gambling platforms tend to have multiple points of attack due to many different endpoints being used, applications, and protocols. Furthermore, the notoriety and scale of disruptions to such platforms typically gain news headlines, and in itself is an incentive, as we've seen in the past with the PlayStation Network and Xbox Network over Christmas periods. So what are we going to talk about today? During this session, we will uncover some of the security challenges that gaming and gambling platforms face, with a particular focus on automated bots and network layer attacks. In parallel, we will also look at the possible ways in which one can optimize the security to manage and mitigate such challenges. For a bit of background, for those who are not familiar with Cloudflare, we are an internet security provider protecting and accelerating over 28 million web properties on a global network that spans over 200 cities in more than 100 countries. Traditionally, this has meant protecting websites and applications that typically communicate over HTTP or HTTPS, and we do so by operating a reverse proxy using DNS. About 2 years ago, we extended this very same functionality to other protocols, so to UDP and TCP, which meant that a lot of our gaming customers were able to secure things like a game server from DDoS attacks, or also known as a distributed denial of service attack. Furthermore, Cloudflare has expanded and extended its capabilities to other areas to secure and accelerate many other aspects of an organization's technology stack. So for example, on the right-hand side, we have developed our own zero trust network solution, Cloudflare for Teams, that is helping organizations secure any application or resource from any device without needing a legacy security perimeter. In 2020 alone, this has proved vital to many organizations that have shifted from work from remote model and needed a reliable and scalable alternative to replace an old VPN. Another extension, as you can see at the bottom, is our serverless application platform, Workers, which lets you build applications much closer to your users in a completely new way. Now, for today's presentation, we will be focusing on the topics of automated bots and network layer attacks, and these challenges fall into Cloudflare's security scope of our core services. We will, or before we begin, it's worth giving an illustration of what the Cloudflare network looks like and where we operate. A fun fact is Cloudflare operates within 100 milliseconds of over 95% of the world's internet-connected population. So we're extremely close to the users, and we're also extremely close to the threats and being able to block them far away from an origin server or your platform. With that, I would like to hand over to my colleague Stefan to begin a deep dive into our focus topics.
Thank you, Philip. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So yeah, thank you, Philip. I always like to start speaking about Cloudflare by representing the portfolio aligned with the DOZ model, since it provides a great visual overview of where Cloudflare's solution is actually operating on your applications and infrastructure. And the first one is the layer 7. So this is where Cloudflare started 10 years ago with performance and security at the HTTP level. And bot management is a relatively recent addition that we are going to see in more detail later on this presentation. Down to the layer 4, TCP, UDP, because HTTP is probably not the only protocol you're using and you might want to accelerate and protect. Cloudflare provides security, acceleration, and load balancing to your TCP and UDP application. And because TCP and UDP are not the only one you want to secure, the network layer is also an important piece of your stack, where Cloudflare can provide performance and security at the IP level with MagicTransit. And again, we're going to see in more detail in the presentation. And finally, down to the physical layer, which is not a product, more a way to connect to Cloudflare, where Cloudflare can directly interconnect either physically or virtually to your infrastructure. So Cloudflare ends up being virtually on top of your rack with no borders left facing the internet without protection. An important point to note is that Cloudflare, all of the service you've seen as part of the portfolio, Cloudflare provides this service in a fully integrated way, which means that every single line of code representing services we offer runs on every server, in every data center, and this around the world where Cloudflare has a point of presence. So the first challenge I wanted to talk to you about is that we observed on the gaming and gambling industry is regarding scrapers and in general any kind of unwanted source of automated traffic targeting applications or services. So there is a non-comprehensive list of use cases that bots are having when it comes to operate botnets towards your region. The first one, credential stuffing. This is how the attackers are validating list of credentials stolen on the internet with the intent of either access these accounts on your services or simply just validate the accuracy of this listing for future coordinated attacks or simply selling the validating information. Inventory hoarding, this targets especially e-commerce or any portion of the site that has something to sell, at least, with the intent of programmatically buying all items and preventing, by extension, real users from doing so. Content scraping, this one is particularly observed in the gambling industries, where scrapers are industrially monitoring odds of the competition to place theirs in a better spot. Credit card stuffing, quite similar to the credential, but with credit cards, and this one intends to validate stolen source of credit card information towards your application for fraudulent buying on your platform directly, or again, just validating those credentials.
I think we might have lost Stefan. I think he will re-log back in. So just bear with us for a second. While we wait for Stefan, what I can talk about instead is a couple of examples that we've seen recently. So I'll just jump back to how bad bots are affecting gaming and gambling, the gaming and gambling industry. Typically, what we've seen quite recently are bot attacks on login or registration endpoints. that are running through leaked credentials to try to break into player accounts. Typically, player accounts will have digital assets or monetary assets that can be stolen and then sold on the internet. So within gaming, that can be digital assets that a player sort of accumulates over a period of time for playing the game. But for online gambling, that can actually be actual monetary dollars or euros that can be stolen. Typically, what will happen is the bot attacks will be sophisticated because they'll be distributed by nature over many different IPs. So it becomes very difficult to throttle and manually sort of block and manage those kinds of attacks because they aren't scalable. The main resource being used in those sorts of instances is engineering time and engineering resources to do so. So with sort of where Cloudflare can really make a difference is our ability to monitor every single request that comes into a platform. We assign it with a bot score so that we can identify how likely it is to being a bad bot or maybe a verified bot, and then how likely it is to maybe being a human as well. And then we can take and help with sort of the automated process to automate that manual process that typically would take a lot of time and resource by just flicking a switch and turning it on. Still waiting to hear back from Stefan, but I will look through some of the questions to see if I might be able to answer one or two of them. Okay, so interesting. So how has the landscape changed for security following the pandemic and in the last year? From a security perspective, we actually wrote a really interesting blog a couple of weeks ago about the trends that we saw in Q3. These were primarily oriented around network layer attacks, which was and is one of the focus topics of the discussion today. And what we've primarily seen sort of a rise in is a level of sophistication and the frequency of attacks, but more specifically around ransom-driven DDoS attacks, where attackers are basically trying, sending a ransom note to an organization where they've maybe identified a vulnerability or an endpoint that can be exploited. They'll send them a ransom note, sort of explaining, a threat, the DDoS threat that they will have, and basically will demonstrate that with a bit of a sort of demo attack so that they see a spike, but it's not enough to sort of render a platform or a network unavailable. So and then sort of the organization has to deal with those kinds of situations to sort of figure out what they can do and how they can manage it. They'll typically ask for typically monetary value, so bitcoins or dollars, in order to exploit them. And this is sort of where DDoS threats and DDoS protection is required. We'll just check in with the team to see if we've managed to get a hold of Stefan and if he will be joining.
Oh, it seems I was disconnected.
We can hear you, Stefan, though.
Okay, right. So let me go back to this one. So finally, Cloudflare bot management in a nutshell. This is complete without complexity. This protects against a full range of bot attacks with instant deployment. Threat intelligence at scale, leverage diverse data from more than 27 million internet properties, applies machine learning, behavioral analysis, and fingerprinting to accurately identify bots. Integrated security and performance. With bot management, this integrates seamlessly with Cloudflare's DDoS, WAF, CDN, enhancing security, user experience, and performance. Automatic allow lists. This allows good bots, such as those belonging to search engines, to keep reaching site while preventing malicious traffic. API and mobile app protection protects APIs that are generated in an automated fashion accessed via web browsers. The solution also protects mobile applications from impersonation and emulation attacks. And finally, configuration flexibility, granular rules, user-defined mitigation, and integration with Cloudflare Worker Platform allows for unique actions beyond the industry standards. So now let's go to the second challenge. And the second challenge is around the scope of the properties being protected. Sometimes HTTP or event TCP and UDP aren't the only type of application or resources you've got public facing, and by extension, you need to protect. So we're going to see how to close these gaps with MagicTransit. When we started 10 years ago, we were providing layer 7 security and performance, but it didn't mean that Cloudflare wasn't operating DDoS mitigation for lower level of DOS stack. With MagicTransit, we are making available to customers the product we've been building for years to protect our infrastructures, to protect yours. So IP level protection is directly operated by Cloudflare and sent back to customer origin infrastructure when cleaned. So MagicTransit isn't different from the other product in the stack. This is totally integrated. It means MagicTransit is operated in any server of any data center, and this all around the world, with providing a total of 51 terabits per second of mitigation capability. As of now, and just to give you a perspective of the scale we provide with the platform, the biggest attack our network has mitigated was generating 942 gigabits per second of traffic. From a packet perspective now, the biggest attack we mitigated was generating 754 million packets per second. So now on the benefits of MagicTransit. So the first one, it helps business make their transformation to the cloud and get rid of some portion of their on-premise boxes. MagicTransit operates all of the traffic for DDoS purposes directly. Two, it provides security without compromise on performance. Both are working together. And using a network like Cloudflare's helps with that. Plus the fact that the solution is fully integrated with the other features and products, the scanning of the traffic is done only once and for all before reaching your infrastructure. And finally, the costs. More and more companies we talk to are looking for ways to reduce their CapEx. So MagicTransit helps you dramatically reduce your CapEx and deliver operational agility with virtual network functions delivered and built as a service directly in the cloud. So now, how it works. So we use PGP to announce routes to the customer's network. So note that this is, as Philip said, this is fundamentally a different product than anything Cloudflare has ever offered. This is not a simple DNS redirect. It's a more involved process where we tell the internet that we are the customer's network and ingest all traffic destined to their networks using PGP. So we can announce any customer network that is larger than a /24 prefix. Once ingested by a Cloudflare data center closest to the source, thanks to Anycast, the traffic is inspected for any threats. Of course, any layer 7 traffic that would benefit from content caching or WAF inspection or anything we do provide in the platform, such as Spectrum, is upgraded to the layer 7 or layer 4 pipeline without incurring additional network ops. Everything is done in Cloudflare Network. And finally, all clean network traffic is encapsulated using GRE and tunneled over the Cloudflare data center towards the customer network. GRE tunnels are initiated from Cloudflare's Anycast endpoint to the customer's network. And Anycast GRE tunnel is special because it ensures that they are highly available and resilient to network failures that will bring traditional tunnel down, because that tunnel is open from any locations Cloudflare has. The egress traffic, as you can see in the schema, is originating from the customer's network directly, and we do plan in the future to make that bidirectional traffic ingress and egress as part of Cloudflare offering. So now you will ask yourself, how do I connect with Cloudflare? So we do have multiple solutions, the default being establishing a GRE tunnel over the internet as an SD-WAN fashion, but some other scenarios are also supported, such as the first one is PNI. That's literally setting up a cable between your infrastructure and Cloudflare, where a location is compatible. So if we have a common location together, we can set up a cable to set up that interconnection. The second one, if you are present in an internet exchange where Cloudflare is present too, we can set the BGP peering there directly. And finally, we do partner with cloud exchange providers to provide you data interconnections such as Zayo, Equinix, Megaport, Console Connect, and Packet Fabric. So the important point to mention is the life of the packet and the requests through Cloudflare Network. When it comes to implement such a scrubbing mechanism, sometimes the implementations are implementing different kind of op. You can see here in the schema that 2 locations are being used to clean the traffic at layer 3 and then at the layer 4 and 7. While this is specifically not a problem for bad traffic, since we do not really care about the performance of this mitigation anyway, it can induce latency for legitimate traffic that needs to go through when crossing multiple ops potentially sitting in different regions. So the blue line shows here that for the legitimate traffic, 2 ops are going to be needed before reaching the backend infrastructure. With Cloudflare, the traffic goes through only one location and is inspected only once from layer 3 up to layer 7 before being sent to your infrastructure, if legitimate for sure. Cloudflare also implements, when the traffic is sitting at the edge, a smart routing of the traffic to leverage even more the backbone so the traffic goes back to the infrastructure in the most efficient way. So MagicTransit, in a nutshell, it does provide a DDoS mitigation capacity of more than 51 terabits per second, a very quick mitigation, less than 3 seconds. The detection is done sub-second. We do provide BGP announcement and GRE encapsulation for the traffic being stitched to your infrastructure. The SOC is provided 24/7. There is a native integration with layer 7 services. So it means that you can onboard your IP traffic, but out of that IP traffic, you can elect some services to benefit from CDN, WAF, bot management, and these directly integrated into the platform. We do support for sure all IP type of services. And finally, you get rich analytics directly inside the dashboard. And with that, I'm going to give the mic back to Philippe for wrapping up, and then we're going to take some questions.
Yeah, so thank you, Stefan, for that. I mean, in conclusion, we've seen that there are many different ways that bad actors can try to exploit an online platform, bots in particular, and network layer DDoS attacks. There are a number of different reasons and motivations behind this, whether that's for profit or just to wreak havoc. But then on the flip side, we've also identified that there are different ways to optimize security to minimize the risk and mitigate and manage these challenges with a number of different Cloudflare solutions. We haven't covered everything that's in Cloudflare's portfolio. So this is specific to bots and anything on layer 3, on the network layer. But that's sort of the main takeaways. So thank you very much for joining, and we'll move to the questions and answers now.
Okay, let's start the Q&A. So the first question is, what requirement do you ask customers when using MagicTransit? So the minimum we ask for customers keen on using MagicTransit is that they can sign an agreement for a prefix minimum/24, for Cloudflare to be announcing that via the ASN. The ASN is 13335. And then if you use any signing of your routes for BGP, we need our ASN to be included into this. And then the advertisement is going to be done directly by Cloudflare, and all of the rest is going to be configured with you directly. That's mainly the only requirement we have. The second question is, does MagicTransit require customers to have a private interconnection with Cloudflare? That's better, but you don't need to. So by default, we do provide GRE encapsulation over the internet. So it means you can use the internet. Some customers, they want to be totally offline the internet, so virtually having Cloudflare on top of their rack, and Cloudflare is the only border facing the internet, filtering all of the traffic for them. But no, you don't need any private interconnection with Cloudflare to use MagicTransit. The next question is any modification needed at the client or application side to use bot management? Good question. So all of the scoring is done in line with the traffic directly, so no changes being done there. Only the JavaScript fingerprint is done by Cloudflare is going to inject a JavaScript at the client, but even these do not need any modification on your side. Cloudflare is going to inject it directly on top of your traffic, so no modification needed. Okay, so we have no other questions, I guess. So yeah, thank you all for attending. I hope it was instructive for you. Philippe, do you have any other last words to say?
No, thank you very much for joining, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for joining. Have a nice day all.